In 2025 and beyond, what the heck is a website for? This digital thing in the midst of AI, the revolution of AI, et cetera, et cetera, it's just different than it was 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's what we're talking about today. Welcome back to Amplify Your Impact. This is a show for entrepreneurs who are out to change the world with their purpose-driven businesses while increasing their own personal wealth and balancing their personal health along the way. I always start the show off with a quick warning. Warning, real life entrepreneurship is raw, so is this show. We record it live. It is unedited and unfiltered. Activate your mula bandha and let's get into it. I'm Josh Biro. Today's guest is someone that you need to know because I think it's been about 10 years now that I've known you, Connie, and I would consider you one of the, in the industry that I'm in, experts on what's happening in the digital front, especially around websites. And not in like the hyper technical, cutting edge, weird website part of it, on the practical, on the ground. Hey, dude, I own a business. What the heck should my website do? I feel like you've been my go-to person for a long time. And also just, you know your stuff when it comes to boutique fitness, wellness, entrepreneurship, running it as a family, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm excited to introduce Miss Connie Holen. And Connie, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. This will be fun. Got lots of fun stuff we can chat about.
Lots of fun stuff. We were chatting just before we got started, how part of the purpose of the show is to kind of just riff on these conversations. And I think we're at an interesting moment for a lot of your expertise where there's a lot of conversation, like there kind of wasn't for a minute, and now there is. So
right.
I'm excited to get into it. Before we jump in there, the business that you currently primarily run is Pixality.
Yep.
What is like your personal vision, mission, impact, driving force, and with Pixality as like a tool for that? You know, what are you out there trying to do, trying to create in the world?
Yeah, great question to start it off. When I started doing web design, I was designing for like whoever would hire me, right? And I quickly kind of realized that I wanted to support and I wanted to work with businesses that I wanted to go to, that I liked, that made my life better, that if I was in a town that I would be excited to visit. Like I wanted those type of clients. And so that's how I ended up in this boutique fitness wellness niche, was because those, I mean, just quite honestly, those are businesses that I deeply want to see succeed because I want to go to them someday and I want to see what people are doing and, what's new. And I love all the different, what's new in fitness and trying things out personally myself. So ultimately, Pixality is, I work exclusively with brick and mortar fitness and wellness businesses. And I work on Squarespace websites is what we build, because I believe that they're the easy to manage, practical solution for busy business owners. And so, I want with Pixality, I want to give these really busy business owners, that they all are, because they're juggling so many different things with a brick and mortar studio, not another just technical to-do list, but a tool that's going to support them in growing their community and staying in business ultimately, so that when I'm in town, I can visit them. That's what it comes down to.
I love it. I love it. I mean, sometimes the simplest missions are the most powerful ones. As you were talking, for whatever reason, I think it's Oxfam has a vision or mission statement. It's just a world without poverty. And that's a big ask.
Yeah.
So different level than what you and I are working on maybe. But the simplicity and clarity of it is what I like. And so with what you're saying, I resonate with it personally too. Just small businesses are the core drivers of social transformation. They take things that are revolutionary, they make them mainstream. And with that, you gotta have a website.
Yeah, yeah, you got to be good at business. You can't just do it just because you love it. And that's where you and I come in, I think.
Yeah, totally. It does, and I'm sure we'll get into this. It does blow my mind, quite literally blow my mind, that still today I encounter businesses that either have no website at all, which is wild. I don't even know how that they got open, or their website is so ridiculous that it's not usable, basically. Yeah. And they're still making it, so
yeah.
Low-hanging fruit. Before we jump in on some of the nerdy stuff here, what's the Connie superhero origin story? How do you end up deciding, I'm going to open my own business as a mom as well,
Yeah.
and decide that business is Squarespace websites, like in this niche. So you gave us a little bit of a peek at that, but that's an interesting path. How do you get
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, it gets even more interesting when you look at what I went to college and right after college to do and my first career, which was I was an Air Force pilot. So I'm retired United States Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel, flew airplanes for 20 years. Most of that was part-time in the Air National Guard. So that's where like I flew one day a week when I had young kids. I'd fly Wednesday nights or have daycare one day a week. But it was like I just kind of needed some kind of creative outlet. And, you know, a lot of the business owners will know that they got into business because they just had ideas that they wanted to bring into the world. So, you know, started learning design stuff online and, you know, it kind of balanced the whole like pilot military thing. I have 4 sons, if you didn't know that. So it's just, there's a lot of male energy around here. So just actually designing and creating was something that just kind of personally I was interested in. So it was just kind of a hobby at first. And, yeah, I just realized I really liked, you know, creating things and I had kind of an eye for design. So I got the skills to kind of back up that eye. And, you know, the rest was honestly pretty, you know, I got into websites pretty quickly. I did do some design for a long time for Live Happy magazine as a freelancer. So I did like all their social graphics, all their podcast graphics for like years and years. And that was really like a great place to like just spit the hours in. I mean, just hours and hours of like routine graphic design, and they were great there. And one of the reasons I stuck around there for a long time was the creative team lead was great with giving feedback. So I felt like I just was like learning a lot, doing all this like production work of graphic design. But websites I realized was something I could do, you know, to help small businesses. And yeah, Squarespace became I designed first on WordPress because that's where I kind of everyone starts. And then I just decided like, you know, there's a simpler way. I'm kind of like an 80-20 person, like with especially with small businesses. It's like, let's not focus all of our time and energy on just like getting this extra 20% that's not going to like move the needle. Like, let's get the 20% that's going to move the 80% of the needle first. So that's where Squarespace came in. So yeah, the origin story is a little backwards from what most people do. Started out, you know, with an Air Force military background, and here we are.
And here we are. I actually really love this story. I was going to say the same thing, that like you're kind of doing it the reverse of what I think a lot of entrepreneurial friends I have are, because a lot of them, myself included, are like, it would be cool one day if I built this business and made this money, and then I got my pilot's license, and then I flew a plane around. You're like, I already did that part. I'm
I
gonna
did
go
that
this
part.
direction.
Yeah. There's actually more
Yeah.
money in that if I did that way, but I couldn't,
Yeah.
yeah, that didn't quite fit our family lifestyle. My husband's also a pilot. So it's like, we just couldn't have that many pilot jobs and have kids. So, yeah, I mean,
Right.
personally, I just wanted something that I could do from home and a little more flexible. And, you know, the reason a lot of people get into entrepreneurship. So
Yeah.
I just kind of found that
Well,
I really like designing things.
I think what you've embodied very well, which is cool, and I don't know, like people kind of take this for granted or something, like it's not talked about as openly as I think it should be. True entrepreneurship is I'm willing to figure out what it takes, sort of thing. And so I think your story sort of embodies that very well, where it's like, I like this thing, so that's what I want to do. Here's the avatar I want to serve. I don't want to do this. How does that work? And you've basically invented out of nothing this business, which has been crushing it for a while. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Like that is the spirit of entrepreneurship right there.
Well, and that was exactly what you said. Like I've always been someone who could just figure things out. And you know, what it really literally came down to, like I looked back at all the when I just started getting going, all the small businesses, the web design clients I had, I was like, which ones were my favorite project? You know, that's one of those things that they'll ask you when you're trying to develop your business. Like, what were your favorite clients in the last year? Well, you know, mine came down to a yoga studio and a hair salon. And so I was like, okay, common denominator, the brick and mortar, you know, in that business. And I literally, like, I very intentionally started asking questions of any studio owners I knew, anyone in the wellness, you know, yoga space was kind of where I started going. And that led me to, you know, I was looking for problems that they had. That led me to Mind Body, and Mind Body, particularly integrating on your website. And I didn't know much about it when I first, but I kept hearing it repeated. Like, oh, I just don't know how to make it work on my website and there's code involved. And, was like, well, that's something I can figure out. Right. So that was really how Pixality got going. Was I got in with Feel Code. If you've been around, you have,
Yep.
what the MindBody branded web tools were before they were bought by MindBody. So I got in with them as a developer partner. And that's kind of the core of how Pixality got going. But it kind of started with, that one question of like, what's a problem out there that people are talking about? And then how can I figure out how to solve that? And the rest kind of grew from there.
I think one of the things that's coming up for me as you're describing this is just again that simplicity and the clarity that comes with there's a problem and I'm going to solve the problem. And so many businesses I talk with or entrepreneurs can talk this big poetic we could do this and that and formulate it like this, and it's like this huge thing, this huge pitch, this huge conversation. And I find myself often asking the question, like, cool, and like, what is it? Like, what's the problem that you solve? And they can't say it. They can't define that. And so I would make the debate that that's an indicator that you're going to struggle versus what you're describing. Who do I want to work for? What's the problem? Can I solve the problem? Yes, here's how. That's it. Like good business is based on that at the foundation. So
it makes your marketing so much easier. Yeah.
Dude, totally. Let's talk about marketing, digital assets, websites, whatever. I like the 80-20 rule with Squarespace as a concept too. I would agree with you that like I found myself, I get too into the technical weeds of things and this platform or that. And in the end, it's like I don't know that I've seen at the level of business that I operate, that people I work with operate, small business level, which by definition is up to 10 million a year. So that's not actually that small.
Right.
I don't see there being that big of a difference. You start screwing around platform to platform and stuff versus design or functionality or whatever else.
Yeah. There's really not these days. I mean, there's just so much, like the point of the website is not, no one cares what platform it's on anymore.
Right.
I mean, for most platforms can do, most platforms can do what most studios need it to do. Not all, but yeah.
Right. And maybe if you're a more technical business and you're on like a Wix site or something, it's like too simple. But
yeah, well, I mean, and Wix would be the one that comes to mind, like with studio scheduling softwares. Like you have to be able to embed things on a website well, and some of those platforms have some issues with that, but most of them don't.
Right. So maybe talk to me about platform. Let's start a conversation there. Not specifically Squarespace, but just platform in general. There was some conversation in the past around SEO in platform, and obviously functionality would be the other thing. But SEO seems like with AI and everything now, that's totally changing. Do you think platform has any impact on your search engine optimization, like on people being able to actually find you online?
Not for a boutique fitness studio, honestly. Like the content is so much more important than the platform. And there are certain businesses for sure, and it comes down to being able to organize content, that there's some kind of fancier structures that you can tag and categorize and, that works better on something like WordPress or something a little more manual. But like we're talking about like, you're running a digital newsletter or something for that level. Like for like a brick and mortar business, like the words that you type into the website are way more important than the platform that it's on. One of the other things with platforms is like how fast it is and stuff. And there is some trade-off there for sure. If you have a like hand-coded website, you code everything. Someone codes everything from the bottom up. So there's no extra code. There's no code bloat at all. Yeah, your website's going to run faster. Google likes fast websites. There's some argument for that. But the balance there is you have to pay someone or you have to know how to hand code everything. And so for most business owners, that's just not very practical. And the majority of small businesses are on some type of platform that has a little bit of code bloat because it gives you more options to drag and drop and make it easy. So there's a little bit of balance there.
I know our website's on WordPress and we're redoing some things on it right now, but we ended up plugging Elementor into it anyways. So like it's essentially a drag and drop like we basically turned the website into what another platform would do. So I don't know about code bloat specifically, but I can tell you we ended up just coming full circle and creating the same scenario
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this pretty generalized question. Like, we better narrow it down. If you're a service, if you're a brick and mortar business that offers a service like boutique fitness, wellness, therapy office, maybe massage, salon, whatever, what's the point in your website today?
Good question. Um, there's a few things. One, I think it's to get found, and you can define that in whatever way that's rapidly evolving. But the idea of search on the internet is not dead, will not be dead. Search engine optimization will just evolve into what, types of results are being presented. But you have to have some type of digital real estate on the internet for
Hmm.
wherever people are searching for them to find you. So I think that's reason one. If you need new clients, you have to have something that shows up in whatever results they are so that you get found. So one is to get found. Two is to present a trustworthy appearance of your business to whoever finds you so that they can know that they're in the right place. They can get excited. They can connect with your business. They can decide that this is maybe something that they want to try. And then third is have an action for them to take while they're in that excited state and connected with you. I mean, really, if you boil it down, it's kind of like those three things. Like you have to get found, you have to connect, and then you have to give them that first step. I just can't. Those three things are still always going to be, I think, the core function of a
Right.
website.
That's just a human being wants to do that. So
Yeah.
why would it not? I was thinking as you were saying that it's true. This the second point, I'm paraphrasing, but like kind of a trustworthiness element
Mm-hmm.
here. I live in Mexico most of the year. My kids go to school here, so a lot of the businesses that I see that I'm doing business with here, it's like going back 25 years in Canada or the
Yeah.
States a lot of the time. And I don't mean that negatively. I mean, like, this system is set up such that it's still possible for that to be the case, and people don't have a good reason not to. Things are in cash. Tons of businesses like that aren't small businesses don't have a website. They just have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
But what I find, or like their Google profile is brutal and the map's wrong, like things like that, that are like, this is baby level business stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't say that to make fun. I say that more from the perspective that, like, a frustrating experience that I have commonly is looking for a business that does something, finding some reference of it online, and they don't have a website, or they don't have that digital storefront for me to go to sort of confirm, is this the place I'm looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't trust anything. Basically, the bottom line is I get all of my information about where to find something or do something business wise from WhatsApp messages with other people in groups here, rather than like
Yeah.
just finding it online. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I
the
think in
trust,
most
the trust
places,
part.
yeah, and in most places, even if like your referral network is strong, you've been around, you have a great reputation, you get someone mentions your name, a friend or something, what's that friend going to do before they walk in? They're probably going to pull up your website or your Google business profile or your Instagram account or something just to like check it out themselves a little bit because no one wants to walk in feeling uncomfortable or call without, doing their research. So even if things come off of referrals, you need to look the part. Most countries, like you need to look like it's a,
Yeah.
safe, clean, aesthetically pleasing place you would want to be that you can trust. It goes for any industry, but I think even more so when you're actually planning to put yourself in a vulnerable situation, something you might not be real comfortable getting back into a workout routine, walking into a place where you're afraid people are going to be, judgy or super in shape or whatever. Like you just need to you need that confidence. You need to trust the business before you're going to even pick up the phone or walk past or anything. So
Yeah. No, it makes sense. The confidence, I think, is a big thing. If I can't, if you don't have a website, your website's total garbage, or like the information's weird, or I go to your Facebook page, I'd say Facebook or Instagram would be the same, but Facebook
mhm.
because that's the common one here. And like hasn't been a post since 2021. Like,
Yeah.
I would rather not go and just find something else than pick up the phone and try to find out what's going
Yeah.
on. I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
going to do
basic human instinct. Like
it.
you don't want to be embarrassed or feel like awkward
Yeah.
or uncomfortable. So you're just gonna But if you, on the other hand, you're kind of excited, you're kind of nervous, you find something, you're like, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm excited. I trust this business. Like, it's easy for me to get started. Like, now you've gone the other way. Like, people want to be convinced one way or the other. Like,
Right.
okay, leave it or go with it. So you have that
Yeah.
opportunity as a business owner with your website.
So going through sort of the three elements that you're describing, which I think is brilliant. The first one, findability part. This is an interesting one in my mind right now. We spent a lot of time, even in my own business and with other businesses, focused on some SEO for a while. And so I'm sure that it hasn't changed that much that it's not true, to your point of like having the right words and meta tags and blah, blah, blah. But it does seem to be moving in real time. And I'm actually seeing this happen where we'll have a studio that we work with that's 2 years into business and they're ranking on the first page in the top three, or they're in the Google stack on the
Mm-hmm.
map
Yeah.
stack right away. And a business that's been there 15 years is not in the same market. So certain things like longevity and et cetera don't seem to have the impact they do or that they did in the past. I guess, what are you seeing? Is there something that a brick and mortar business can do to be more findable when it comes to their digital presence in their website?
Yeah, it comes down. I mean, there's kind of a whole lot of things. Some you have control over and some you don't. I mean, there's the foundational stuff that's like easy, doesn't cost you anything. Make sure you're very clear about your location, make sure you actually call your services what your prospects call the services, and you use those words in your headlines and all those things. Respond to reviews, ask for reviews. Like, those are all the things we've been talking about for years. Those are still really important and at the core of this. And a lot of times when you see like an older studio that's kind of fallen off, a lot of times older studios, just because they have that longevity, do well. But sometimes if they've fallen off, they've updated their website and they didn't really pay much attention to making sure that they kept a lot of those words in the same places. Like, they went some kind of new, like, minimal aesthetic or something, and they inadvertently stripped out a bunch of the stuff that was helping them. So there's oftentimes a reason for that if they fell where they were there before. I think what we're seeing, like with all the AI results at the top and everything, that's going to be interesting to see that, because right now those aren't showing very frequently for things that have local buying intent, like yoga studio near me. We're not seeing those AI summaries yet. Now, those might be coming. It might just be that Google hasn't prioritized those as a AI worthy stuff. We're still seeing the map. We're still seeing kind of the traditional equation for how to get found in search right now. But 6 months from now, those could all be AI searches too. And I think if that happens and we are starting to see those AI generated results pop up for like more things, like I was just looking, like, what's the best Pilates studio in your town or whatever. Like, that came up as an AI generated one. So they're a little more long tail, like more nuanced searches, or like, yoga nidra workshops near me. That came up as an AI, overview one. So a little more nuanced searches versus like the very direct, like yoga class near me. I think right now we're seeing is still kind of traditional equation. Show up on the map, that's the results. But there's this kind of like moving thing right now, which, like, what's going to start being more of these AI generated ones, and what type of content do I need to create to continue to show up in those if those start to take over those other searches. I think that's going to lead us to, I think kind of the pendulum is coming back where, 10 years ago, everyone needed a blog, and you saw a bunch of blogs about my favorite smoothie recipe and, just whatever random
Right.
stuff that they wanted to put out there because everyone needed a blog. And then we kind of went to like, okay, your blog content isn't helping you. Maybe don't prioritize that so much unless you start, having a different goal for your blog. Now I think that there is going to be like a little more of a resurgence for brick and mortar businesses on long form content that's more niche like that. Like, yoga nidra workshop, you actually have a page for that, even if you only run it 3 times a year, because people might be searching for that. So like more back end pages. We're not going to clutter the like main experience, but I think that's going to be interesting to see that evolve, as more of those AI, generative searches start popping up for like just that second layer of search term, right? I don't think I would guess, I mean, who knows, but I don't think that Google will ever probably get rid of that map as that first result for like the very, direct near me type stuff, because it's what people want to see, right? Like coffee shop near me, you want to see a map. So I think that
Yeah.
model is still going to be there hand in hand with this, kind of new like content heavy AI search strategy.
I've got infinity ideas and thoughts. As you're saying this.
This is the
There's
stuff
so
I like lay awake at night thinking
I
about.
love it. I
Where
love
are we
it.
going with
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, totally. Where are we going with this? I mean, the first thought that comes to mind is I already do this. I know that a lot of my colleagues do. There was like a course thing that I was in, and the person on stage was demonstrating this, basically just asking the crowd, like, okay, when you search for something now, where do you search? And if it's AI like ChatGPT, stand up, and it was like 80% of the
Yeah.
people, like, and I same thing, like the first place I go isn't Google anymore, and unpacking why that is, it's like I don't want to get Google results and then have to filter them myself to figure out
Yeah.
what the best result is. I just want the answer. So that's hence the AI answer.
But that's the question. Are you Googling for an answer or for like a
Exactly.
map? There's two
Exactly.
different intents there, right?
Different intents. And so
Mhm.
the map, different thing. And so but where I may read or may look at something that's like best yoga studio in XYZ area,
Yeah.
maybe that's interesting, but probably not even.
Yeah.
I'm asking a question. So I think that's maybe part of where the shift here might be.
Yeah.
I like the idea that some of this longer tail keywords, longer form content has some value for small business, only because one of the things that I don't feel like happens from on the small business side is mining the information of expertise that small business owners have. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people I know that run brick and mortar small businesses, and like, they know their stuff, like obscure things. My
Hmm.
dad's as a welder, and I think about how much he knows about welding after 45 years of full-time welding and steel fabricating. It's not course material, it's like practical, when this happens, do this and learn that and whatever this and be careful of that sort of thing. And so where's that information? And so
Yeah.
a business like his, a welding shop, maybe a bad example, but could write content or could create content around that stuff that would be very unique and for the right market, like super interesting.
Yeah, and I think that the challenge there is to like, the curse of the expert. It's to like to push that aside and be like, you know too much. And you see that on websites all the time. Like no one really cares about the lineage or, all that yoga
Right.
people and Pilates people. Like,
Yeah.
they care if they're going to get a, Pilates butt. Like,
Yeah.
so it's like putting that aside, being like, I know all this stuff. I want to put that out. And then like, how can you back all that information into, frequently asked questions and questions
Mm.
people have, and then you could answer with all your expertise, but you can't just start with your expertise and write an article about that, or write it, you've got to back it out to what people are searching for. And I think that works on two levels, right? It works on that getting found, because if you're writing answers to things that people are asking about on your website, you're going to show up in ChatGPT as a reference, or in the, Google AI summary. And also you're going to connect with people better if you're like meeting them where they're at
Right.
with the question. So I think it's, and ChatGPT can help you with that too. Like I kind of, put in a blog article and being like, give me like 10 frequently asked questions that, that studio owners have about marketing or something. And then you structure
Yeah.
your article to answer those questions. That's playing both sides. And I think it's a smart marketing tactic, but I think that's going to be the challenge, getting that expertise out, is how can you package it in a way that people are actually asking it.
That's such an important point. I feel like going backwards to the blog moment you're talking about, because I remember that fully. And there's still people touting that stuff out there, but that unintelligently at this point. I feel like they've missed a major
Yeah.
shift. Side note: I've got a friend who runs a company called Men's Group, and he built that business from zero to whatever 1,000 subscribers in the first couple of years only on SEO. The only thing he did was blog SEO content optimized specifically for search parameters. And if you read the blogs, like they're not good. They're not terrible, but like it's not a good blog. It was just the game of getting exposure to get people to the site.
Yeah.
And then in the last couple of years, you can see his traffic grows and grows and grows and grows. It spikes, it grows, it spikes, and it's just tanked. It's like less than half. Now his business is still doing fine, but that entire marketing branch, which was literally his entire business, just completely dried up almost overnight. So it's just changed how that all works. Anyways, this little aside, you search in Google, and then if you scroll down, you ask a question, then it shows you other people asked, and there's other versions of the question.
Yeah.
And so those are the questions that people ask. That's the content to create. We use that technique all the time for whether it's blog, video, whatever. This AI movement, it's kind of coming full circle to that a little bit, to your point of yes, you have to be an expert, but what are they actually looking to get an answer for?
Yeah.
You can talk about your expertise all day, but if I don't know who you are and I don't give a shit about what you're talking about, it doesn't matter. You're going to listen to it.
Yeah.
So,
and one of the other things, so one of the things I say is you want to start writing, blogs are great, but have a plan. And one is just don't even think about search. Just think about what would help my ops? If people ask, what questions do people ask at the front desk? And wouldn't it be great if someone was asking that question and you're we actually have an article on that. Here's a QR code to the website article and it'll answer all your questions. How smart would your team look if you're had content already, or here's a worksheet on that, or a PDF that we have some printed out ones and we'll hand you because you have a question about what's the difference between yoga and Pilates or whatever. And, here's a printout. So just first start, what content can I create that'll just make my business look good with existing clients I have and make me look really sharp. That's going to actually, already kind of set you up if you put that in the digital space for showing up in searches too. The other thing is, and this is a little trickier, but is there a way that I can enter the local conversation in the local media space that I have? I mean, because in reality, your brick and mortar business, you care about 10-mile ring of people who could come pay you money. You don't care if someone in a different state thinks your article is the greatest thing ever, right? So, I use the example around here. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. The Lincoln Marathon in the spring is a big deal, and people start running in January, and they join fitness studios to run, or they join yoga studios to recover from their runs. And there's this kind of whole group of motivated half marathon runners that kind of have that in the spring. So can you write some articles how yoga can help you recover from your long marathon training runs or something? Right. That gets you in the local conversation. It also can open up some doors to be, whole nother thing, but be a guest contributor on a local media outlets, something too. So if you can kind of just start creating content from those two things of what questions am I getting that I can look really smart if I already have a resource, and how can I enter into the local conversation? The marketing is going to take care of itself. The SEO is going to take care of itself.
I think it's such a smart recommendation. I mean, to paraphrase what you're saying, it's create something that's actually good, basically. Yeah. I mean, going back to my buddy's story and the blogs being not that great, none of that was written for the purpose of, an end user is going to find this and go on this page and then read it, and then it's going to empower them in this way. That's not what it was for.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of content that I run into, and it makes me really annoyed. This is a waste of my time to even read this thing. But the point being, the system previously was set up to make you think that's what you should do. What you're saying is kind of the opposite of that. No, what's the human being who's going to read this content or going to consume this content thinking? What do they need to know for them? Which makes perfect sense. I mean, that's
good. But you still, there is a little balance there. You still have to use the right words. So if I was writing an article about, yoga for recovery from marathon training, instead of just saying your next marathon, you would say, when you run the Lincoln Marathon in March of 2027, or you still kind of have to sneak them into where they still sounds natural.
But it still makes sense.
Yeah. On my own, stuff. Like I usually write the content the way I would want to connect with people. And then I go sneak some keywords in. And then when I get too nervous because it sounds a little, then I take some out. Like it is a balance. I mean, that's why SEO copywriters exist, is to find that balance. But
So similar, but slightly different vein. There's a new product that we're launching. We've kind of a couple of studios that we've tested it with, and it's through this third-party group that I've worked with for a little while, and they've built the technical backside, where basically the pitch is this: in 3 months, we guarantee we'll get you in the top 3 on the Google Maps result as a brick and mortar business.
good promise.
Or you don't pay if you don't get there.
Yeah.
The technical side of how is the part that blows my mind. So there's like multiple steps. Step 1 is actually setting up your Google My Business stuff properly.
Yeah.
Making sure your homepage is set up properly with some of the stuff you're referencing. Like, just it needs to say your name, your location, that you're a yoga studio, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds silly, but so many businesses don't have that.
Yeah.
And the Google My Business, like simple things like most small businesses don't fill in the services category part of that. And those are the words that it uses to show up for certain search. So if that's empty, like you're just telling it you don't do anything, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the technical component, I'd be curious in your thought on this, is if I search for your business in Lincoln, Nebraska on my phone, and then I put it into Maps, and then I drive there, it'll count that as a quote unquote check-in, which tells the Google algorithm this place was the correct place to show for this search and was the preferential place for someone to go to. Yeah. So even on the localized level, it's trying to serve up the most likely place you would go to. That's why when you search coffee shop, Starbucks comes up.
Yeah.
Because it has the most traffic going to it.
Yeah.
And so this platform, it sounds like, I think it's going to implode at some point. But what it can do is it goes through these like different video games and other online things and makes it look like people are driving to your business.
Really?
So you get more check-ins. Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
It's like if you're playing Pokemon Go or whatever, and then you're in your car and you drive by the studio, it'll ping that.
Ping that as a visit.
Mm-hmm. As a visit.
So I've never heard anything like that, but
it's kind of fucking wild. But
yeah.
I don't know. It's like a service that we're gonna test doing. The 2 studios I've tested it with so far, I can say it's a small bubble, 5 miles. In the 5-mile bubble, one of them went from being number 7 on the search to being number 3 in like 2 weeks.
Really?
It was really fast, just in that Google stack, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
and that's where the money clicks are. So,
right.
Yeah. Interesting. Because there is like a lot of ambiguity around how do I get in the pack, right? I've got all these things. I have more reviews than this person. And, there are a lot of things that, Google doesn't publish the list, but there's some search engine marketers who have put together kind of a list of survey, and like a lot of things you don't have control over, how close you are to city center, what your physical address is, if you're, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and you're in St. Paul, but you're right on the border and you want to get Minneapolis traffic. Like there's some things that you can't, you don't have control over. You also don't have control over if, your client, your competitors have been in business for 10 years and have 2,000 reviews, and like some of that, like the over time is valued too. So it'd be interesting of like what you're talking about, that factor of check-ins is so highly valued in Google's eyes that it can like overcome some of those things where people feel stuck in that, bottom, that 5 to 10 spot or that 4 to 10 spot. It'd be interesting to see how that indicator, how important it is. Maybe it trumps all else, which is
right. I mean, it's way early to tell for sure, but it looks promising at first glance. It makes sense in my mind. But the other element, and the kind of part of why we've been in the conversation too, is like the speed of change with discoverability seems to be exponentially faster than it was 10 years ago, for sure. If you were a new business in a market, to try to get up in the top of that stack or to get up in the top of your search results versus people who've been there for a long time, that was very hard. You had to put significant effort into it. They just had enough longevity there. That part seems to not be the case anymore.
Yeah.
Where like you can move down in ranking if someone else is doing better than you. And so maybe it is, my presumption is that it's like Google wants to show in that stack the place that people really want to go to
The hot
preferentially,
businesses. Yeah.
the hot spot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
We'll see. It's
We'll have to.
all yeah, it's an evolving thing.
So, okay, part two of this, you're saying you got to be discoverable. So you get some SEO going, you've got your website, someone searches you, whatever, they find you, they click on it, and it loads up. I mean, we got to think like that's a pretty big, big step actually,
Yeah.
because who, I don't, you don't search, you don't screw around just randomly going to websites anymore. So if I have landed on your website, you use the word digital storefront, that is what it is, the equivalent of me walking in the doors. Like I'm not there by accident, or it's highly
Yeah.
unlikely. So you were making the point of like trust after that. What are you seeing, or do you have any sort of philosophy of approach in terms of what should be on a site when I first land there to establish that trust and sort of tell me that you're legit?
Yeah. Well, it's all about the instant feeling you have in, maybe under a second or two of like, I'm in the right place. They get me. I'm kind of excited about this opportunity. I might not be completely sold yet. I'm probably not, but like, ooh, yeah, this is what I'm kind of interested to. And there's two type of people who are going to open up that website. There's, someone whose friend recommended it, or you drove past and you're like, I wonder what that's about, and you pull it up yourself just directly and you're checking out that one. There's also then all those services like, I know I need to do something for my fitness. I know I need a routine. My one friend tries bar, this friend tries Pilates, this friend tries, like I'm kind of just researching what's around me. And in that case, you kind of get more of a like side by side comparison. So like I might have three websites up because I'm Googling, just different ways to solve my problem. So in that case, you're problem aware, you're not solution aware. So you're kind of
Mm.
looking at, you're being compared to all your competitors, your website is. So kind of both paths, I'm checking out this one business because it's been referred to me, or I'm trying to solve a problem and I'm looking at possible solutions. You have to keep both of those people in mind, both of those website visitors in mind. Um, the photo when you open their website is really important. Um, you know, just all the things that come out of that in just a split second before people even read the headline and see the logo or whatever. Your logo is not all that important, honestly. The photo that people see when they log the website, when they first see the website, is the most important thing. So typically with that, like, really like to show some sort of emotion. People connect with emotion, they connect with people. So I don't like to use like a photo of just your beautiful space. It is important to show that your space is beautiful, but it's also important to show, that human connection. So somebody, with some sort of either smiling or looking satisfied or something on that homepage. But we also have to show, your space needs to show well too. And especially in this like boutique era of things, with the Instagram and the like, people want to feel like they're in a place where it's, it's really pretty and it's boutique and they really like being there. So, I had one client that we pulled up, several of our competitor websites trying to figure out like, okay, people are coming from the ads in this case, like, but they're not clicking through. Like, why not? Okay, well, let's look at, how social media does. If they see your ad and your competitors are running ads, well, now the same person is going to see ads from all of the different competitors. So I'm like, let's say they're comparing you, decide which one they want to go to. This studio has bright and airy, beautiful photos with plants, and the place looks really nice, and yours is a little dimly lit and a little dated photos. So like, let's up that. So anyway, tangent to say, like, the photo is number one. Like, what photo are you using there? Like, you just really need to have a great one, or video, photo/video. And then the main headline and the subheading. I kind of put those together because that's the like, I'm in the right place in more ways than one. I'm in the right place, both like I'm looking for a Pilates studio, and this is a Pilates studio, and this is in the town that I'm in, and also they get me. like the headline is something that I aspire to be, or that a problem that, I'm looking to solve, like we talked about. However you position yourself, those headlines can work in various different ways, but like you've got to hit them with the emotions, hit them with the feels, somehow with the combination of the headline and that first photo. I mean, that's just like step one that your website has to do.
I was just going to ask, and you kind of answered it already. The photo being important makes sense. That if a picture speaks 1,000 words and a video speaks a million, that's the thing that I'm going to pay attention to before anything else.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the content. That, yeah, going back to the 2 reasons why I've landed on your site: comparison, or referral, basically. It's like the content needs to reassure me I'm in the right place. That's to tell me that my pre-existing beliefs are true and you can solve my problem. Content specifically, if you go to like a Pilates, a bar, or a yoga site, side by side, it might say something really close, Do you have any thought or experience on, how do you make that more compelling? Like, is that, based on what you're saying, it is one of the things to focus on, to test, to improve?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what you said. Like it really is all relative to your competition in your community and what people's alternatives are in your area. So, if you do pull it up, you pull up kind of all your competitors and you look at the headlines and you're like, wow, these all basically sound the same. That's where you like, okay, how can I sound different? Like what's not being said here, or what's one layer more of truth that I can pull out that's going to connect that much better. Because, a common problem, I would say, or common thing that you see with, studios, headlines and things is they're just one layer too lofty. Like they're like a little too generic language. They're just trying to be like one step of like inclusive for everything and everybody and everyone's problem. So if you can dial that down like one more level, to be either specific about, who your people are or the specific problems they have, you're just gonna go direct to, you're gonna cut straight to like connecting with people a little bit more. So it is really relative to what's going on in your community, and different communities are different. I have a client right now that is a chiropractic and massage, and they're in the Bay Area, so tech neck is a big deal. And like so you kind of have to really speak to, you can't get too lofty with it. You have to really speak to what your community is coming in and saying on the first visit, this is really bothering me. Or, I don't know. It's tricky. And I know you want to be like available for everyone, but it's like, how can you go just one layer more specific and change a word up so that it's not the first word that pops into your mind to describe a problem, but maybe it's like a little more emotive, uncommon word. I like to find those words by looking through your Google reviews. Like go actually look at the words that your clients, or wherever you get reviews, but the words that your clients use, like there's some really good nuggets of like, phrases in there and ways that people describe their problems that you as the business owner probably aren't just going to think of when you sit down to write a headline. And you can like just borrow from the Google reviews what your actual clients are. And I think that's the best way to get a website that, a headline that helps. And one of the things that I do all the time is I'll take the Google reviews and use ChatGPT and just copy and paste, 20 different Google reviews into ChatGPT and say, help me write a homepage headline for this business based on the problems and the experiences that their real clients are having. And then it'll give you a bunch of stuff. But
yeah, what are people actually saying about me that I need to say back, sort of thing. I like the one layer deeper. I was just thinking about a specific studio that they were just really stuck on this idea of saying, to live your best life. Like that was their desired slogan line. I mean, everything short, but argued about it. Because I'm like, yeah, but like, what does that mean?
yeah.
And are you saying that I can go and do anything else I want and just practice with you, and then I'm going to live my best life? Is that, like, this is a component of a bigger holistic lifestyle approach? I'm going to live my best life, What do
Yeah.
you specifically solve? And it was interesting how difficult that was, like
Yeah.
for them to come up with a more detailed, more specific, more focused thing to say,
Yeah.
basically. So,
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's the so that kind of like next, like live your
right.
best life so that you can like what fill in the blank. Like that's the next layer. And people
Yeah.
stop at the like cute tagline one and they don't go into that. One of the tools that I like to use sometimes, and I end up using it more often now, is like and you see sometimes on homepage headlines that like rotating text where it's like,
Yep.
our classes help you, and then there's like a fill in the blank, you know, carry your groceries better, play on the playground with your kids. Like it rotates through a bunch of things. Like that's a great tool to get a bunch of those different things out in the same, but also connecting to like the actual real problems or the real goals that your clients have. So
I like those too. I've been thinking about putting one of those on our website, actually, just
yeah,
how to fit more in smaller space. So, okay, going back to the photo thing, I don't know if you've played around with ChatGPT's new image creator or
a
Sora
little
or
bit.
these other things, but like obviously there's Midjourney and these other platforms too. They're good now. Like it's 6 months ago,
They're getting
you
there. Yeah.
couldn't. They were kind of shitty. It was still amazing, but like
Yeah.
it's getting crazy good now. I suppose, like maybe I'm not sure what my question is here. I suppose, like if the photo is so important, like there's kind of no excuse to have a shit photo anymore when you can
Yeah.
literally just make one up now.
Yeah. That, I mean, I think, and this could end up being kind of a way to really differentiate yourself for a brick and mortar business with all the AI generated stuff. And you're right, it's rapidly getting a lot better. I think most people can still kind of like tell it's AI generated or something's a bit off. Maybe they don't know. I don't know. I have really mixed feelings about it. From an authenticity point, and like if I'm going to walk into
Mm-hmm.
your business, and if I get one hint that something's like not quite as it should be, and that trust gets like, and you might not even be able to, the average consumer can't put their finger on it, but yeah, I still think the few $100s for a photo shoot is like in your own space is well worth it for
Yeah.
just, all the places you're going to use that. I think it's the one marketing asset that's like, just spend that money. Don't even hire a web designer. Just throw together, have great photos and put, if you're trying to save budget, like I still think the photos, I think that's going to differentiate, businesses that say that they are, locally owned and operated and they care about their community and they're like, like I just think that that's a conflict of values and I think it's going to come back and bite. I think
Hmm.
the AI generated stuff might come back and bite people. Even when like if you're using a stock photo and even looks like and you're like that person doesn't live here, like the people
Right.
know. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's dangerous.
I
So
think
we'll
it's a good
see.
call out. It's a weird moment for this. It's a good segue to my next question, but I would just comment that like I think you're right. Like authenticity and IRL is like more important than ever now, and
Mhm.
that's only going to keep going. But the I have experienced that with a website specifically, or actually this one business. It was the website and their Instagram were just perfect, like
Perfect.
beautiful, every like almost too perfect. And then you go to the business and that's not what you experienced. And the fact that it was so incongruous made me completely distrust. I'm like, this whole thing is just a ploy. It's all a bait and switch. It,
Yeah.
even if the product was good or whatever, it was like they weren't lined up. So
And we
yeah, you're
saw
right. I
that
think that
cycle.
that skepticism is probably going to go up more. I would anticipate.
Yeah. Because we saw that had that cycle happen on social media. Like, it was polished video and everything. And then like social media went, the things that were engaging better were the more raw, natural like content. And I think that the website is still generally more polished presentation than social media is. But I think that the same kind of principle applies. Like if everything gets too perfect, the trustworthiness, and that doesn't
Hmm.
mean you should have crappy photos. So like don't take it the other way. Like get a professional photo shoot. But in the world of AI, yeah, I think like the like having like showing that you're trustworthy and you're real and you have real people that aren't perfect is going to invite people who don't feel perfect themselves because they're trying to improve themselves in a little bit more. So
Yep. Fair. Okay. Third element is next step. Like someone's on your website or whatever, and then they've got to do something. They got to book the class. They got to buy the pass. They have to download the PDF and give you the contact info. Like, is that one? Is that true? Still, two, relating this back to the initial question, like, what the heck is the point of your website? And so this would be conversions, I guess, is what we're suggesting.
yeah.
Is that the core purpose of the site today? Let me start there. I have more questions around this, but
Yeah, that's a very good question because business owners, they want to get the sale, right? It's all about intros. They want to sell, they want to get those sold on first visit. Um, in reality, what consumers, what many are doing is they're going to the website, they're checking you out, maybe they're calling, maybe they're walking by, they're engaging other ways too, but they still, I mean, people engage in different ways. I'm curious what you think about that. Like
mm,
classically, the lowest barrier to entry is the thing that you want them to do. Like you want to get their info, right? Like claim this first free class or let us know you're interested, or, maybe it's more of a concierge, like, interested, not sure where to start, give us a little bit of information and we'll give you a recommendation on your best, something like that. But you kind of have to have like capture info somehow when they get to that website. I think that's a conversation that it's always been. You're going to get more conversions. You're going to get more people's info the less you ask for them. They don't have to create a profile. If they don't have to pull their credit card out. But the balance of that, again, most studio owners are like, I'm the sales team to follow up with them. I just want to,
right.
I want them to like get in the system and buy the thing. And so there's a balance there. If and that's always been the case. I still think that that's the case. And maybe we're moving towards like less actual people being less willing to create the profile and buy the thing and do the full process on their first thing and more just like drop info in. I don't know. What are you seeing?
I see. I mean, I would still coach a brick and mortar business today to do exactly what you said. Like, just you want the path of least resistance. What's the logical next step for what they would need to do to participate with you? So I need to be able to create a profile, book the class, buy the intro pass. Not necessarily in that order, but
Yeah.
that's what I would optimize for. I guess my thought is just like two things. One, because it's such a big deal that someone gets to your site, part of me starts to think now that the optimization of the site should be for collecting their contact information so they become an inbound lead,
Hmm.
and then you pick it up with the sales team
Yeah.
to get them to the next thing. And I only say that because so many sites, when we look at their analytics, get so much traffic. Like a brick and mortar one location bar studio that's getting 6,000 uniques per month. They don't have 6,000 people coming in. Their
Yeah.
email list is only 1,000 big. Like, how is that possible? So even if half of those are bullshit bots or something like that, it's like something's missing. And the site might abide by all the sort of quote unquote best practices that we would coach towards. It's not that it doesn't convert at all, but just maybe it's because the whole objective is off. That's the thought that I have. I don't know.
Hmm.
Instead of saying, hey, cool, you're here. Now give me your money and book your class. Is
Yeah.
there a baby step instead?
Right.
Cool, you're here. Here's this thing or do this. Like, let me get your info and send you some more stuff. Let's start a conversation, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of a baby step. And that's traditionally been the lead magnet or the like enter your email, subscribe to our mailing list, and we'll send you this free video or whatever. I'm not a fan of those. I think those are kind of dated. I think no one needs,
Mm-hmm.
more PDFs or even free videos. I don't think personally, I think the like promoting a lead magnet for a brick and mortar studio, it's different probably for you and I, but for a brick and mortar studio, like promoting a lead magnet pretty heavily on the website, I think it's distracting. Because I think they're coming there and they're like looking for a change in their life. They're looking to start a new routine. Maybe they're still trying to decide about that. Giving them the out of like, download this PDF makes them feel like they're doing something that they're not really like, it's not progressing them. Yeah, you have their info, so you could follow up with them, but I just think it's kind of distracting now. So I'm not a fan of the like lead magnet thing. What I've been doing instead is that baby step, which I think is working, is more, a lot of times like it's a sticky button on the side that's like, need help, or, that pops up a form or something that is that like, it's more of like a concierge, like what you might talk to someone about if they called, if they had the, guts and the questions to call and be like, I'm not sure, I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if it's, my back's kind of injured, or like, so it's like giving them that opening, like what the hesitations that they have in their mind. So it's like a forum that's like, interested but not sure yet, or something like that. Let us help you find the right class to start with. And, you ask them questions about, what are your goals? What's your schedule like? Have you ever done yoga before? What hesitations you have, or it's basically kind of like getting that conversation starting. And then someone follows up with them, a real person, I think in this case, and has that sales conversation, but about their problems. Like you're being, a consultant, and you're like being their wellness consultant, and you're helping them put the plan together so it feels more boutique and concierge and like less salesy. I think that can be done really well, which it is a sales conversation, because the end of it ends up with like, why don't you come in and try this class and see if your back feels better after it? And then, and then the sales process happens. But I see that as being a good, mini step. I do think you need to make it obvious, your intro, like that is a thing for those people who are just like, nope, I want to try it, I'm going to buy it and come in. But I think that baby step is more of a like olive branch to like a conversation. We're here to help kind of conversation starter.
Yeah. Are you putting many like AI chatbots or stuff like that on sites? Are you seeing
Yeah.
that more commonly now?
There was a lot, I would say a lot of people, maybe a third of people have a chat bot. I think that there was like in the last couple of years, a lot of people put them on. Wouldn't say there's like a spike right now. I think those tools kind of came out and did a heavy marketing push a couple of years ago. And a lot of people are using them. Some people swear by them. They think they're great. Other people don't. I think that's probably more of a like function of how well they have them set up internally. But yeah, I think they are pretty frequently used. I think that is a good way to have those conversations. I think the key little text that's showing, or the text that pops up right when someone clicks on it, like don't just use the standard stuff that's in there, like actually make that kind of personalized. Like, hi, I'm Kim, the studio manager, and I'm here to help you, I don't know, just make it personal so that they feel like it's more like a boutique kind of consultant-y feel.
As you were saying now, it came to mind is there's a real estate company here in Sayulita, and I know the owner and a few of the people that work for them, and they have a chatbot on their site, and it's kind of an older chatbot too. It has to be managed by someone, so multiple of the realtors who work for the company get pinged if something goes in the chat, but they are real fast at responding. Like if someone posts in there, one of those realtors is on it immediately. And so it's interesting because of it being used that way, you do have the experience of like interacting with a human basically immediately when you get to the site, versus other real estate sites here are your typical crappy real estate site. We're the best realtors ever, voted best by God knows what, and here's the same listings as every other site. Like it doesn't actually do anything for you, sort of thing. So, here's a thought that I've had for a while, and we haven't had the business that's wanted to like really test this, because I think you'd have to full commit to it for a while. But I like the idea that you were suggesting, Connie, of the co-creation, where it's like, hey, this is Josh, blah, blah, blah. And now we're like co-creating your plan for how you're going to practice with
Hmm.
me or whatever. We always see the most visited pages, obviously homepage, but then schedule page
Yeah.
and pricing page
Yeah.
interchangeably, which is more visited.
Yeah.
The pricing page is a good example of where, in some cases, we don't put the prices on there, which generally I don't love, but it's part of their larger sales strategy.
Yeah.
But that page, it's like if I go and I just look at your prices, like I'm thinking of myself personally, I'm literally just with no other reference, with no anything, just saying, do or don't I think that this is a price that I like?
Yeah.
And so, because the business is not part of the conversation, that co creation can't happen. And I think very often people judge the price of something before they have the full context.
Hmm.
So, I'll give a good example. If you go to a gym and it has a pool, a basketball court, a machine setup, a track, and a free weights place, and it's $50 a month. You're like, that's pretty good. And then right across the road is a Legree Pilates
Right.
place, and it's $280 a month. And someone's like, that's an okay price. Like, that doesn't make any sense objectively.
Yeah.
So, but if you're coming from the Legree place and you look at the gym, you're like, this is insane value. If you're coming from the gym and you've never ever done Pilates with a reformer or anything else, and then you look at that, you're like, that's very expensive.
Yeah.
The point being, I've always thought like, I don't know, maybe what we're moving toward this AI stuff too is if I click on pricing, maybe I shouldn't just see your prices. Maybe I should be entering a conversation at that point. Like the website, maybe it is more interactive,
Yeah.
is my thought. I don't know. This sort of relates to what you're saying. Technically, I think there's a few ways to do that kind of right now, but maybe that's the way to do it instead. I don't know.
Yeah, it is an interesting thought. Like, are people coming in with a preconceived budget? Like, I have X amount of discretionary spending for fitness wellness, or, in the case of, I think, a lot of boutique people, it's like my identity as somebody who goes to a Legree studio, not a gym goer. And so the price is almost like, well, that's what it is, but I want to be in
Mm.
that group of people. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could get, there has been a lot of studies that, say if you don't have any prices on the website, people assume it's too expensive for them, whether it is or not. So that's a risk for
Yep,
sure.
totally.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I still right now am still a fan of like there being some sort of price anchoring on it, but I do like the idea of having more, as we evolve into this, like, I think I saw on your website homepage, you have like a quiz to get things started. So that quiz is another kind of way that you can kind of make it like conversational. Like I could see, and then like, Chat GPT clearly is basically like, I think quizzes on steroids. It's kind of where all of this is going in the digital
Yeah.
space. So I could see a scenario in the near future where there is more of an interactive element on pricing, on pricing pages where you ultimately get to some sort of price, but you answer some questions about your goals and what you hope to gain in the process that makes you get in the right context. I could see that scenario happening. It'll be interesting to watch.
Well, what do you think about this? I mean, thought experiment. If the goal on the business side is I want your information and I want to curate a path to co-create with you like the best next step. Ultimately, I want you to buy something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to a website for one of these businesses we're talking about, I'm like, why am I going there? I'm confirming something. I'm making sure you can solve my problem. And the only other things I want to know are very practical. How much is it? How do I buy it? What's your schedule look like? Like
Yeah.
it's pretty basic. Like it's pretty basic stuff. What about a site where the whole site is just that? Like we use a platform called Video Ask. It's
Yep.
a part
I
of
use that.
part of Type. Yeah, it's part of Typeform, And so between Typeform and Video Ask, and then these chatbots too, and we've got some interesting Zap stuff too, where like you can have a GPT customize a message to send you back an email and whatever. But it's like, I don't know. Maybe you just go to a website and there is nothing to read anymore. You just get there and it's a video and you're like, yo, why are you here? What do you
Yeah.
want? Choose it. Choose option A, B, C, and then let's have that conversation.
Yeah. I could definitely see testing something like that out on a landing page that you run ads from, because someone clicks through, ads very specific, targeted, someone clicks through, and then it's kind of like a halfway between actually like a direct phone call and having that conversation. So could see that being like tested in that case for sure. Just a real simple kind of immersive conversation. I mean, the interesting thing will be like, typically brick and mortar businesses are like years behind tech companies or
Right.
other companies that do this stuff. So if you start to see more of that minimal approach, I think we'll start to see it in different industries first, and then we can kind of sit back and be like, how's that working for them? And when people in the general population get more comfortable with that type of thing, then I think it'll filter into the boutique fitness industry. But I still think that I think we kind of have to lag behind some of those as an industry, because there is this uncomfortable, I'm walking into a place,
Mm.
like factor, like, in an uncomfortable zone in my life where I'm, for the most part, probably trying something new that I haven't before. So I think it's probably wise for like brick and mortar businesses to like sit and watch how that works for the realtors and the interior decorators or the like more online service based businesses, and kind of see. But I think you'll start to see it, or then maybe testing it on like the landing pages or like new client pages. Like I like that idea of like, new start here, and all that pages is a kind of interactive widget. Like that's
Mm.
kind of interesting, having that sales conversation that way.
I'm taking a note on it right now. I think that would be a great tester,
Hmm.
a great tester spot, because unlikely to have any negative impact on
Yeah,
anything else. Yeah.
because they can still
So
click
talk
around and see photos and all that.
right. Um, so you mentioned landing pages, and landing pages aren't a new concept, and you've mentioned ads. I guess if on the larger scope of, if a website is one component in your overall marketing, I would define the goals of marketing to be brand awareness and lead generation. That's what I want to have happen for my marketing.
Yeah.
What are you seeing right now that actually works, I guess, for brand awareness and lead gen? I mean, is it the same old like post on social media, run an ad, send that ad to a landing page? Is there anything that you're seeing that is just consistently produces for a brick and mortar business kind of across the board?
Yeah, in the digital space. Yeah, I mean, outside the digital space first, like I think you just still cannot completely ignore signage and
Mm,
apparel, and people walking around with your like, not necessarily your logo shirt, but something that is signature to your brand message, and just that like grassroots in your community. I think people forget about that a lot. And they're
mm,
like, I need to go
yeah.
straight to like running ads. But, a good sign is very valuable. And then referrals. That kind of goes hand in hand with those kind of grassroots things. Like, what are you doing to actually encourage people to bring friends in? Because there's no better type of lead. So, once you have, I just say that first because I have people, because of the space that I'm in, the digital marketing space, that come in, they're like, I have no clients, I need to run ads, but I'm low budget. Like, okay, well, there's a lot of other things you can be doing right now before you run ads, because it's, ads are a lot about, like you said, it's the visibility. It's a hard road to see the actual like dollar for ad mapped
Yeah.
out. The major benefit of that is brand visibility. But so I have the kind of grassroots stuff first. Then outside of that, gosh, I mean, it really is, I see the better leads for my clients coming from Google Ads, kind of more
Hmm.
like niche terms. I mean, those are just the warmer leads. And when you get to this kind of disruptive ads like social media ads, the leads are just weaker. Like you might get some people's information and you're just following up with them. The actual like effort to get someone actually in the studio, I would smother Google basically. Like if you're not showing up in those Google search results, maybe the majority of what you do is, yoga, and you show up pretty well for yoga stuff, but maybe you have some Pilates classes, that you don't show up for because there are other studios who just do Pilates. Maybe run some ads for Pilates classes and then try to move them, into your yoga, stuff too. So I would kind of look at all the different angles, like we kind of started talking about, like on Google, that what people are looking for and where you don't have visibility, and just fill those holes first, because
Hmm.
those are going to be the best leads that you can get. Um, other visibility, yeah, if you're just starting out and you do not have like a presence on Google, like you probably are going to have to run some ads just to start. Then that's where social ads, I think getting that brand visibility out there and a real targeted, group, around you is great for visibility. Um, yeah, I mean, it's
I
the
like
same
it.
old game. Like, where can I be for a budget that makes sense for me? And, for some people, that's more like just more creative on the ground stuff. And some people are like, no, I just want to like plaster a certain platform that I know my people are on and get seen from every angle.
I think you're raising a good point. I mean, it's still true. If someone's on Google and has typed in search words that are related to your business,
Yeah,
like no one just does that for fun. So
yeah.
you want to show up. Hence the
They're
SEO
warm.
conversation, but
Yeah.
they're super warm. Yeah. So it makes sense that advertising there would be your language. Plug those holes first.
Hmm.
Backing up another step, I love the call out of just signage. And we actually experienced this recently too. And admittedly, it took me a minute. Like I almost missed it as a coach. It was a good gut check for me where there was a business, they're a year and a half in, numbers are doing okay, but their biggest hurdle is like they just don't have enough traffic coming in the doors. And I don't say that lightly. Most businesses come to us and the owner says, hey, like I need more traffic. And then when we look at their numbers, they don't. They need more conversions and sales.
Yeah.
So it's an internal problem. This business, legitimately, that was their hiccup. And so they're like, let's run ads, let's do this, whatever. And then we were smart and we're like, okay, take a video of driving in and your parking lot and your door and like show me that whole path. And what we immediately identified was just the simple, they had no signage that was any good
Yeah.
anywhere. And they were kind of near a relatively main road, like there's 1,000 people a day driving by you and they don't even know you're there. So
Yeah.
let's start there. Just that it could be that simple, I guess, is my point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people go
Hmm.
directly to the, ads because it's, paid ads because it feels like you can hide behind a computer. It's not like you don't have to get out and, do anything. But,
Right.
paid ads, I think really like if you have something that's working already, it can, throw gasoline on it and it can help it go bigger. But you kind of have to have something that's working already. Like you have to have
Right.
a little bit of word of mouth. You have to have a little bit of like, because when they see an ad and they're like, oh yeah, when I was at the dentist appointment, the ladies behind the desk, they were talking about this place. Like you kind of have to have that piecing together in people's mind. And so, I just think it works so much better if you've got several things going. And I know that's not what people want to hear because they want the like turn on, turn off, or turn on, get clients, turn off when I'm have enough
Push this
clients, right?
button and have 10 people come in. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Everyone's looking for the silver bullet, the magic pill, or whatever it is. I've never seen it. I've never found it.
No,
It's a
a lot more complicated
combination
than
of
that.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always more than you think.
Yeah.
Um, interesting. Okay, well, what do you feel like? What is a maybe strange belief you've picked up or a controversial lesson that you've picked up as an entrepreneur in this space over the years that you feel like other people don't necessarily share, they miss, or they don't know?
Just in general entrepreneurship or in,
Sure. Yeah.
um, okay, or in this industry? A couple come to mind.
Both.
Both. Okay. Um, I would say that I am constantly coaching people when they're putting their websites together to, if they're writing their own website, to cut down the text, be more precise and more bold with their words,
Mm.
because it's harder to, was that Mark Twain? That's like, I would have written a a shorter letter, but, or yeah, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. Like, it is harder to write shorter, more
Yeah.
impactful, but you're going to, especially in this world of chat GPT. And I realize like everyone's using chat GPT to write their websites. Got it. I'm working on some tools to like, or some content to help people use chat GPT well, because that's how people are doing it. But it spits out a lot of content. And I think, a lot of people are like, that sounds great. Copy, paste, like, and I think in where we're all going with this, like the overwhelm, information overwhelm, lack of information is not our problem anymore. We're
Mm.
in filtered, curated, impactful content is the problem, the lack of that. And so, I don't know if this is really like but I don't know, but I'm constantly like having these conversations with clients right now, like, let's cut it, go look at it, make it more impactful, make it smart, because people are not going to read your description of, like I said, your lineage and, your, all the ins and outs of why, the history of yoga is important to know. They want to know what they want to know. So like, let's cut it down, let's pare it down. Everything needs to be zippier, quicker, and more to the point, because they're
Get to
not
the
going to read it
point.
otherwise. Yeah.
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 Um,
I think that's an important one for people to hear. Because you're right. I know that I'm guilty of this.
yeah.
I'm also aware enough that anytime I write or put anything out, like I'm always going to then go edit it and filter it through, whether a
Yes.
chat GPT or whatever,
Cut
or
it
just get
down.
someone else on my team to cut it down because it can get to the point much faster. And the ego blow that I experienced firsthand was even split testing this, where like I made a video that was 10 minutes long and a video that was 1 minute long, and they're on the same subject matter. And the 1 minute video outperformed, not like a little bit better, but like a
Yeah.
bazillion times better. Like no one,
Yes.
it's like just fucking get to the point. I made the same 5 points in the 1 minute video,
Yeah.
it was just my ego telling me that I could make it so poetic that you would want to watch me for 10 minutes run my mouth. The same thing.
Yeah. But we all are like, please just curate it for me, summarize it for me. Like information overload, I think is a real thing right now. And,
Yeah.
as a business owner, you want to talk, you want to share all the things that you know about what you know about. And we're even been playing around with, and I like this for a lot of brands, like the team page. Classically we've had, so and so instructor, and you click and you get their full bio with their background and why yoga is important to them and all that. I'm doing more like team pages now where you don't leave the main grid page, but like if you hover over someone's image, it pops up and it's more like conversation starter, like conversations. The point of the page is that someone like has a connection with like, hey, I saw you used to, you worked as a lifeguard when you were growing up, or something, like I did too, or like it's to kind of connect
Mm.
with people. So it's more of a like, 3 questions, like what do you do to unwind, coffee or tea, like they're kind of cute, but they're kind of like just like get to know me conversation, like. And I feel like that's kind of a shift in content a little bit, where like what's the point of that page? It's to make people be like, oh, I like that person, or I have something in common with that person, or like I want to go to their class because they said that they like dogs and I do too, or whatever it is. But it's like,
Right.
it's kind of paring back. So yeah. So I think like, yeah, like I mentioned, not a fan of lead magnets. I think it's wasted space. I think it clutters. It just is distracting. Minimal. I feel like the more effective websites right now are more bold in their messaging, minimal in their text, and just get right to the point. You cut the fluff. and get right to it. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where that is. I kind of piggybacking on that, like when we're talking like just entrepreneurship wide, something that has made all the difference in my own business, that relates to this too in a different way is finding your niche, being really specific. I mean, there are a lot of more talented designers out in the world than me, but few that have, I think, as successful businesses because I know who I serve and I know specifically what their problems are, and I have answers to those problems. And if you translate that to brick and mortar business owners, it's kind of the same way. Like your people and you can start talking directly to them, and that makes you different than the big box franchises that have to kind of feel like they have to fit a small town and a big town, and like the brand has to fit everywhere. So I would say just from a normal entrepreneurship kind of lesson learned is like, don't be afraid to, go be different and be like unique, or be more specific and a little more niche in what you're doing.
It's a good recommendation. I feel like the businesses that both of us serve often struggle with this exact thing. I always make the joke, there's a very common phrase in the yoga marketing world, yoga for everybody. And I always make the joke, like, that's the worst marketing phase or marketing phrase you could say, because who's it for then? Like, it's for nobody as well
And
as
that is
everyone. So
probably the headline on half of the yoga websites I see.
half the
Yeah.
websites out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you have that, no shade, and go change it.
Go change
Like,
it.
who
Yeah.
yoga for? Who are you actually serving? That's what people want to know.
Yeah.
To back us up a step, though, the two thoughts that I've been having that you're solidifying in my mind that I really like is one, this idea of curation. But like, knowledge isn't power, knowledge put into action is power.
Yeah.
But this information overload, it's valuable for you to curate information so that I don't have to go through the effort to filter it. Like, that's really kind
Yeah.
of interesting now. Um, and then from the content creation standpoint, making things more concise using AI, etc. I feel like one of the paradigm shifts that I find myself coaching people towards a lot right now is the skill is no longer to be good at doing the thing. So writing content as the example, there are exceptions to this. If you're an elite content writer, sure, you're still probably going to be the best. But the skill now is directing. Like, instead of you doing the task, you direct the task of what's happening. And all of your knowledge is still relevant because you have to know if the output you're getting is correct, and you have to know what the appropriate input is to get it correct,
Yes.
how to articulate that. So yeah, that shift
Yeah.
to direction instead of I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing. It's kind of garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing. Even like I can tell that my clients, they use my content workbook, but they're starting to use ChatGPT to write their sites, which is fine and great. But I can tell that they are not using it well. Like they are inputting
Yeah.
just the prompt I'm giving them in. And so it just gives kind of like lukewarm, And so I'm, internally updating my process for how to coach people to write their own website, to actually give the right prompts to ChatGPT, because it is a skill. It's a
Yeah.
skill on how to Google for answers. It's also a skill for how to prompt ChatGPT to give you better stuff. And so I think you're right. That is exactly that is a valuable thing. And as a business owner, being able to ask the right questions, prompt all this AI stuff to give you the better answer, I think is going to be a skill that we're all going to learn over the next few years. And I think also with that, people have always paid for clarity, but I think that's going to become something that people are more and more willing to pay for in all aspects of their life in the next coming years. Is, when you look at my fitness routine, what should I do nutrition and fitness wise, to get to the goals I want? It's why people hire personal trainers and, that type of stuff. But I think people are going to be more and more willing. Like I said, no lack of information. ChatGPT will give you a workout plan that's, a million different ones, any day of the week. But the clarity of someone to say, this is what you should do. Here's your shopping list. Here's your workout list, to solve your problems. I think, given all the inputs for from AI, like that's still going to be very valuable. And if boutique fitness
Yeah.
studios owners and staff can capitalize on that and step into that leadership role of curating content and giving clarity to their customers, they're gonna be much more valuable in this world of where we're going with endless advice on how to get healthy.
I love it. Lots to come. I think it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting shifts in the digital content, entrepreneurship, website realm. Connie, how do people get a hold of you if they want to leverage your expertise and have you create clarity for them?
Yeah. Pixalitydesign.com, Pixality design.com is my website. You can learn all about my services there. And then I'm also pretty active on Instagram at Pixality Design. You can DM me there. I post once a week, little kind of snippets of educational tidbits and stuff. So follow me there too. That's the best two places.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I think we're going to have to do a follow up and talk some more, a whole nother angle of stuff. Check back in 6 months at the rate things are going.
Right.
That's it for today. Thanks for coming and watching, whether it's online or just listening. And if you are online, leave us a comment. What about your online presence do you feel like is working versus isn't working? That would be my question that I have for the audience. Hope to hear from you guys, and we'll pick it back up in our next conversation. Talk to you soon. Peace.